Bella had exactly 10 seconds to decide if she was going to run from the death threat on her phone or stay for the 61-year-old patient who'd just confessed he was falling in love with her despite being 36 years older and running the kind of criminal empire that had already cost him a wife and 2 children to a bomb. The text message was explicit: leave Seoul now or end up like the last woman Ji-sun Park had cared about. But what the sender didn't know was that Bella Nandi hadn't flown 8,000 miles and broken every professional boundary to walk away from the first man who'd ever made her feel this alive. Her finger hovered over the reply button as footsteps echoed in the hallway outside her door. What will she do? Before we continue, you're welcome to my channel, Afro-Korean Tales. Kindly hit the like, share, and subscribe button. Now grab a popcorn, let's go on a ride. The email had arrived on a Tuesday morning, unremarkable in its simplicity, but extraordinary in its offer. Miss Nandi, we represent a private client in Seoul, South Korea, who requires your specialized services for a complex nerve damage case. Compensation will be $50,000 per month for a minimum 3-month engagement, with all expenses covered. Discretion is paramount. Please respond within 24 hours if interested. Bella had stared at her laptop screen in her small San Francisco apartment, reading the message 3 times. $50,000 a month. That was more than most therapists made in 6 months. At 25, despite finishing medical school at 22 and building a reputation as a nerve damage specialist, she still had student loans that kept her up at night. She'd called Margie immediately. What if it's a scam? Her best friend had warned. Or worse, human trafficking. Girl, you can't just fly to Korea for some mysterious client. They actually sent verification, Bella had argued, pulling up the attachments. Medical records, reference checks, everything. It's legitimate. Or elaborate. Bella, please think about this. But Bella had already made up her mind. This was the kind of opportunity that could change everything. Besides, she'd always wanted to see the world. AMD Seoul wasn't bad. The flight from San Francisco to Incheon International Airport took 13 hours. Bella spent most of it reviewing the medical files they'd sent. The patient, identified only as Mr. Park, was 61 years old with severe nerve damage from a car accident 3 years prior. He'd undergone 3 surgeries, seen 12 specialists, and had made minimal progress. The notes suggested he'd given up on treatment entirely. A challenge. Bella loved challenges. Seoul hit her like a wave when she stepped out of the airport. The sprawling city stretched endlessly, a blend of ultra-modern skyscrapers and traditional architecture. Everything moved fast, the people, the cars, the very pulse of the city. It was nothing like Nairobi where she'd grown up, or San Francisco where she'd trained. A man in a black suit held a sign with her name at arrivals. He was maybe in his 40s, with hard eyes that assessed her in seconds. Miss Nandi, I'm Taejin. I'll be your security liaison during your stay. Security liaison? Bella followed him to a black SUV. The email didn't mention security. Mr. Park values discretion and safety. You'll understand more soon. They drove through Seoul in silence. Bella watched the city blur past, noting how Taejin kept checking the mirrors, how his hand never strayed far from something under his jacket. This wasn't normal. This was something else entirely. The apartment they'd arranged for her was in Itaewon, small but comfortable. Taejin gave her a phone. This is for communication regarding Mr. Park only. Your first session is tomorrow morning at 8. A car will pick you up at 7:30. Can you tell me more about him? Beyond the medical files. Taejin's expression remained neutral. Mr. Park will tell you what he wants you to know. Get some rest, Miss Nandi. Tomorrow will be challenging. Bella unpacked, fighting jet lag and growing unease. She'd taken cases with high-profile clients before, celebrities and athletes who valued privacy. But this felt different. The security, the secrecy, the careful way Taejin had avoided her questions. She called her parents in Nairobi, kept it light. Made it safely. The apartment is nice. Starting work tomorrow. She didn't mention the strange circumstances. Her father would worry. Her mother would insist she come home immediately. That night, Bella barely slept. She kept thinking about the file, about a 61-year-old man who'd given up hope, about what kind of person needed this level of security and secrecy. The car arrived exactly at 7:30. Taejin drove her through Gangnam, past luxury boutiques and towering office buildings, until they reached what looked like a private hospital. No signs, no indication of what the building was. Just sleek glass and steel behind high walls. "This is one of Mr. Park's facilities," Taejin explained as they rode an elevator to the top floor. "He values privacy for his treatment." The corridor was pristine but empty. No other patients, just a few nurses who walked hastily with tense shoulders, like they had guns pointed at their backs. This wasn't a conventional hospital. It was a fortress. Taejin stopped at a door at the end of the hall. "Mr. Park is inside. He's not expecting you to succeed where others failed. He's only agreeing to this session because his associate insisted." Sounds like he's a joy to work with. "He's complicated." Taejin's expression softened slightly. "But he deserves a chance. We all hope you can help him." The door opened and Taejin stepped aside. Bella took a breath, adjusted her bag on her shoulder, and walked into the dimly lit room. A man stood at the window, hands clasped behind his back, posture rigid with tension. He didn't turn around. The city skyline stretched behind him, soul glittering in the morning light. "Mr. Park, I'm Bella Nandi. I'm here too. I know why you're here." His voice was deep, controlled, and cold as ice. "And I'm telling you to leave." Bella set down her therapy bag with a decisive thump. She'd flown 8,000 miles, walked into whatever complicated situation this was, and she wasn't leaving without at least trying. "I don't care if you're rich, powerful, or used to people doing whatever you say. I'm here because this is my job and I was paid to deliver results. If you're not interested, I'll just leave." The man in the shadows didn't move. His eyes, dark and dangerous, promised violence to anyone who challenged him. This was Ji-sun Park, and Bella was about to learn that some men carried more than just physical scars. At 61 years old, Ji-sun had built an empire that spanned decades through calculated violence and strategic brilliance. For 3 years, he hadn't let anyone touch him. Not since the accident stole everything that made him feel whole. But that accident was just the most recent tragedy in a life marked by loss. There was something in Bella's tone that stirred his interest. Something that cut through the numbness. This young woman, barely in her mid-20s, had the audacity to speak to him like an equal. "If you don't mind, I'd like to take a look," Bella whispered, stepping closer. Her professional mask was firmly in place, but her heart hammered against her ribs. She'd flown 8,000 miles for this job. Born in Kenya, she'd been a prodigy who'd finished medical school at 22. At 25, her reputation as a physical therapist specializing in nerve damage was already legendary in medical circles. She'd worked with Olympic athletes, accident victims, stroke survivors. Her age meant nothing when her results spoke volumes. Still, standing here, facing this man whose presence filled the room like smoke, she wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. Ji-sun finally turned. The city lights from the window behind him cast his face in sharp relief. He was tall, easily 6 feet, with broad shoulders that filled out his black shirt perfectly. His face was all angles and severe beauty, silver threading liberally through his dark hair. Age had only sharpened his features, given him an air of absolute authority. The lines around his eyes spoke of decades of hard decisions and harder victories. But there was something else there too. Something that looked like old grief, carefully buried but never fully gone. But it wasn't his looks that made her pause. It was the emptiness in those eyes. The carefully constructed wall that screamed of someone who'd given up on something fundamental. "You've looked. Now leave." He turned back to the window. "No." Bella maintained her ground. "Your nerve damage doesn't have to be permanent. Unless you're comfortable with it, and that makes my job easy. I'll just leave." Her tone sent a shock wave through Ji-sun. In his 61 years, few people had dared speak to him this way. Certainly not someone young enough to be his daughter. Not his associates, not his rivals, certainly not a woman he'd just met. But this Kenyan woman with fire in her eyes wasn't intimidated. She flipped through her journal, scanning pages of notes his associate had provided. He had no family left, no children, nothing that tied him to softness. That's what had made him untouchable for decades. No leverage, no weakness. His rivals had tried everything over the years. Money, violence, political pressure. Nothing worked because Ji-sun Park had nothing to lose. He'd made sure of it. 31 years ago, he'd had everything. A wife he loved, 2 beautiful children. Then a bomb meant for him had stolen them all in a single horrific moment. He'd been 30 years old, building his empire, making enemies. They'd targeted his weakness, his family, and they'd succeeded in destroying the only good thing in his life. That day, Ji-sun had made a vow. Never again. Never another wife, never more children, never anything that could be used against him. For 3 decades, he'd kept that promise. He'd become untouchable, invincible, alone. Until now, perhaps. I know you've had 3 surgeries and 12 different specialists. She lifted her face, meeting his eyes directly. I know you're standing in the dark because you've convinced yourself you're broken beyond repair. Well, Mr. Park, I'm here to tell you that you're wrong. Bella moved closer, just enough to invade his space. She had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. The age difference between them was staggering, 36 years of life experience separating them, but she refused to let it intimidate her. She'd earned her place in this room through talent and hard work, not luck. 1 session. Give me 1 hour. If nothing changes, if you don't feel even the slightest difference, I'll leave and never bother you again. But if there's a chance, even a small one, that I can help, then you owe me an apology. He studied her for what felt like forever. This young woman with smooth, dark skin and natural curls pulled back in a professional bun. There was something about her youth, her certainty, that both irritated and intrigued him. She couldn't be more than 25, yet she carried herself with the confidence of someone twice her age. She reminded him, painfully, of his wife at that age. That same fire, that same refusal to back down. He pushed the thought away. That part of his life was dead and buried. Bella forced herself to hold his gaze, to not look away from the intensity burning there. Fine. He moved past her toward a door on the far side of the room. 1 session. Then you leave. The therapy room was better lit, equipped with professional equipment that must have cost a fortune. Bella began setting up while Ji-sun stood against the wall, watching her with that same unnerving focus. She could feel the weight of his years, his experience, in that gaze. I need you on the table, she said, pulling out her massage oils and nerve stimulation tools. I don't take orders. His response was arrogant, clipped. In this room, you do. I'm a professional with a 97% success rate in cases like yours. Unless you'd rather stay broken. The word hung between them like a challenge. His jaw tightened. Broken. He'd been broken for 31 years, since the day the bomb took his family. The physical damage from 3 years ago was just another layer on top of that old wound. This was going to be his last shot at this. Afterwards, no more. He moved to the table, carelessly unbuttoning his shirt. The fabric fell open, revealing a well-maintained physique that defied his age. His chest was sculpted, muscles still defined despite the silver in his hair. Tattoos inked authentically with symbols she didn't recognize covered his ribs and shoulder. But there were also scars, old ones, telling stories of violence survived. He lay down with visible reluctance. Bella's breath caught, though not visibly. Something cracked in her chest at the sight of him. She was quick to regain her professional composure firmly in place, despite the way her hands wanted to shake. There was something about him that set her nerves on edge. Not fear exactly, but awareness. The kind that made her hyper-conscious of every breath, every movement. This was complicated. He was 61. She was 25. The age gap was impossible to ignore. But the attraction she felt was undeniable, inappropriate, and completely unprofessional. She pushed the thoughts away. This was work. Nothing more. I'm going to start with your lower back. The nerves that control sensation originate from your lumbar spine. She warmed the oil between her palms. This might be uncomfortable at first, but I need you to try to relax. I don't relax. Then today's full of firsts. Bella placed her hands on his lower back. His entire body went rigid under her touch. The muscles beneath her fingers were dense, locked tight with years of tension. She worked slowly, carefully, finding knots and pressure points. She'd treated hundreds of patients, but something about touching him felt different. More intimate than it should. His skin was warm under her fingers. She could feel old scars, the evidence of a life lived dangerously. At 61, he'd survived things that would have killed younger men. The accident 3 years ago had been just one more thing in a long line of violence. "You're barely breathing," she murmured. Tension makes nerve response worse. It's hard to relax when a stranger has their hands on you. "I'm not a stranger. I'm your therapist." Bella pressed deeper into a particularly tight spot along his spine. "When's the last time anyone touched you? And I don't mean doctors poking and prodding. I mean really touched you." The silence was answer enough. 31 years was a long time to live without real human connection. Ji-sun had become a master at isolation, at keeping everyone at arm's length. Touch had become clinical, transactional, never intimate. They continued in quiet, broken only by the soft sounds of her movements and his carefully controlled breathing. Bella lost herself in the work, in the familiar rhythm of finding tension and releasing it. But she couldn't ignore the warmth spreading through her palms, the way his body slowly, grudgingly began to respond to her touch. She shouldn't be feeling this. He was 36 years older than her. Old enough to have children her age. Old enough to have lived an entire life before she was born. But age was just a number when your hands were on someone's body, learning their pain, their vulnerability. By the time an hour passed, something had shifted. Ji-sun sat up abruptly and Bella saw the flicker across his face. "What is it?" Her brows furrowed. "Did I hurt you somewhere?" Ji-sun gave no response for a few seconds. Then he finally answered. "I think we should call it a day with the massage." "A day? But I'm not done. We still have a couple of minutes before." "I said we are done." He barked. "All right." Bella held up her hand in submission, then went ahead to stack up her massage tools into her bag when he suddenly broke the ice. "I felt something just now." He flexed his hands like he was testing them. "That hasn't happened in 3 years. And I'm sorry for yelling." The word sorry caused Bella to turn back. "Did I just hear you say sorry?" She almost chuckled. Flushed and embarrassed, Ji-sun brushed his finger through his silver-streaked hair. "Well, I struck a deal." Bella smiled, turning back to her bag. "It's a start." She cleaned her hands, trying to ignore the way her heart was racing. "Same time tomorrow? What if nothing else changes?" Ji-sun responded almost immediately, like he was scared to lose this tingling sensation again. She looked at him directly. "What if everything does? That's what you're really afraid of, isn't it?" He didn't answer, but the look in his eyes told her she'd hit the mark. This man who'd lived 61 years, who'd seen and done things she couldn't imagine, who'd loved and lost in ways that had nearly destroyed him, was afraid of hope. "See you tomorrow, Mr. Park." She winked at him, took a last long stare as if she was taking a memory shot of his features before heading to the door. Bella left the hospital feeling oddly shaken. She'd treated powerful men before, celebrities and executives. Everything had gone professionally. No spark, no mushy feelings. But Ji-sun Park was different. Dangerous in a way that had nothing to do with his reputation, and everything to do with the way he looked at her and how her ethical walls melted under his stare. The age difference should have been enough to keep her professional distance. Should have been a barrier. Instead, it felt like a forbidden temptation. Her apartment in Itaewon felt empty after the intensity of that session. Bella dropped her bag by the door and collapsed onto the couch, pulling out her phone to call her best friend back in California. "Hey Bella, so tell me, how did it go?" Marga's voice came through bright and curious. "How was the mysterious client?" She exhaled deeply. "Complicated." Bella closed her eyes. "He's got severe nerve damage from an accident 3 years ago. Complete loss of sensation and function in certain areas. But Margie, he's given up. Like completely. I trust you were able to do your magic with those gifted hands of yours." Marga teased. "Stop with the teasing, Marga. I'm just doing my job." Bella smiled despite her exhaustion. But there was this moment today when he felt something change. Like his body remembering what it used to do. It was incredible. Okay. And what's he like? Is he nice? Mean? Gorgeous? Come on, give me the full details. Marga squealed over the phone. Bella's smile and soft chuckle lasted too long. Oh my God, he's gorgeous. Marga crowed. I can hear it in your voice. Stop, Margie. He's my client. His looks don't matter. But he is gorgeous. Marga pressed on. Devastatingly. Bella groaned. But also cold and closed off and clearly dealing with some serious stuff beyond the physical. And he's 61 years old, Marga. 61. There was a pause on the other end. Wait, what? Girl, how old are you again? 25? That's like 36 years. I know. Trust me, I know. Bella rubbed her temples. Which is why I'm here to do a job, not develop some stupid crush. But you already have one. Marga's voice was softer now, concerned. Bella, be careful. Age gap relationships, especially with powerful men, they can get messy. And you said he's involved in some shady stuff? I don't know yet. His people were very vague about what he actually does. The security is intense though. Like, really intense. Just promise me you'll be smart about this. I promise. It's just work, Marga. Nothing more. But as they talked for another 20 minutes, Bella knew she was lying to herself. This wasn't just work. Not anymore. That night, Bella couldn't stop thinking about the way Ji-sun's body had felt under her hands. The heat of his skin, the tension slowly melting away, the vulnerability of him trusting her enough to lie there and let her work. The silver in his hair, the lines around his eyes that spoke of a life fully lived. The scars that told stories he'd probably never share. She fell asleep that night with his face in her mind, those dark eyes watching her like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. The next morning, Bella arrived at the hospital promptly at 8. Tae-jin met her in the lobby this time, his expression slightly less forbidding than yesterday. He was younger than Ji-sun, maybe in his 40s, and clearly devoted to his boss. He's already in the therapy room, he said as they rode the elevator up. That's new. Usually, we have to hunt him down. Progress, Bella murmured. He's different with you, Tae-jin said carefully. In 30 years of working for him, I've never seen him let anyone close. Be careful, Miss Nandi. His world is not kind to weakness. The warning settled in her stomach like a stone. What do you mean? Tae-jin hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. Mr. Park lost his family a long time ago. A wife and 2 children. They were killed because of what he does, because someone wanted to hurt him. He swore after that to never have another family, to never give anyone leverage over him again. For 31 years, he's kept that promise. Bella felt something twist in her chest. That's why he has no one. That's why he has no one, Tae-jin confirmed. So if you're getting close to him, if he's letting you in, understand what that means. It goes against everything he's built for 3 decades. And it makes him vulnerable in ways that could get both of you killed. The elevator doors opened before Bella could respond. The weight of what Tae-jin had told her settled over her like a blanket. Ji-sun wasn't just a lonely old man. He was a man who'd lost everything and had spent 31 years making sure it could never happen again. Ji-sun was indeed waiting, dressed in black athletic wear that showcased his physique in ways her professional brain tried very hard to ignore. For a man of 61, he looked incredible. He stood by the window again, but this time he turned when she entered. You came back. I said I would. Bella set down her bag. How did you feel today? She asked, stepping closer. Different. He moved toward the table without being asked. Not necessarily better, but different. Different is good. It means your body is responding. She began setting up. Today, we're going to work on your hip flexors and lower abdominals. The nerve pathways there connect to everything else. Something flickered in his eyes. Awareness maybe, or concern. That's more invasive. I'm a professional, Mr. Park. I've done this hundreds of times. Bella kept her voice steady despite the flutter in her stomach. But if you're uncomfortable, we can modify the approach. I'm not uncomfortable. He lay down, but she saw his hands fist at his sides. Do what you need to do. Bella warmed fresh oil, then placed her hands just above his hip bone. His stomach muscles contracted immediately under her touch. She tried not to notice how defined they were, how his body had been maintained with obvious discipline over the decades. "Breathe," she instructed softly. "I know this feels vulnerable, but tension defeats the purpose." "Everything about this feels vulnerable." "That's because it is." Her hands moved in slow circles, working the tight muscles. "Healing requires vulnerability." "That's the scary part nobody talks about." They fell into silence, but it was different from yesterday. Charged somehow. Bella was acutely aware of every point of contact between her hands and his body, every breath he took, every tiny shift in his position. The age difference hung between them, unspoken but present. And now she knew. She knew about his wife, his children, the bomb that had stolen them. She understood why he was so closed off, why he'd built walls so high. "Why did you become a physical therapist?" His voice startled her. "My father had a stroke when I was 15. The therapist who worked with him was amazing, patient and kind, and she helped him walk again when everyone else said it was impossible." Bella's hands continued their work. "I wanted to be that person for someone else. So I worked hard, finished school early, got my medical degree at 22. A prodigy. A determined student," she corrected. "I like fixing things." "Am I a thing to fix?" She met his eyes. "You're a person who deserves to feel whole." "That's different." Something passed between them in that look. Something that made Bella's hands falter for just a second before she forced herself back to professionalism. This was dangerous territory. He was more than twice her age. He'd lost a family. He'd built an entire life around never caring again. By the end of the session, Ji-sun was sitting up, looking at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Tomorrow?" he asked. This time, Bella smiled. "Yeah, see you tomorrow." It became their routine. Every morning at 8, Bella arrived at the facility and worked with Ji-sun for an hour. Sometimes they talked, sometimes they worked in comfortable silence. But every day she felt him opening up a little more. The walls coming down brick by careful brick. She learned about his life in fragments. How he'd built his empire from nothing in his 20s. How he'd married young, had children early, thought he had it all figured out. Then the bomb. The investigation that went nowhere. The funeral where he'd buried his entire heart. "You never wanted to try again?" Bella asked one day while working on his shoulders. It had been a week since she'd arrived in Seoul. "I couldn't risk it," he said quietly. "Every person you love becomes a target in my world. I learned that lesson the hardest way possible. And now? Now I'm too old for such things." His voice was flat. "That ship sailed 3 decades ago." Bella wanted to argue, but kept her professional distance. It wasn't her place to question his life choices. On the 10th day, Sungo showed up halfway through the session, knocking briefly before entering. He was in his early 30s, handsome in an easy way, and clearly one of Ji-sun's trusted men. His eyes went wide when he saw Bella's hands on his boss's lower back, the intimate nature of the work. "Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. The council wants to know if you're attending the meeting tonight." He looked between them with obvious curiosity. "They're getting concerned about the succession plans." "Tell them I'll be there," Ji-sun said tersely. After he left, Ji-sun sat up slowly. "You should know what that was about." "It's not my business," Bella said, cleaning her equipment. "It will be if you keep coming here." He stood, buttoning his shirt. "My organization, the people who work for me, they're getting nervous. I'm 61 with no heir, no family. They worry about what happens when I'm gone." "You're not dying. Everyone dies eventually." "In my world, sometimes sooner than later." He moved to the window. "There are factions that think I'm too old, that it's time for younger blood to take over. Your presence here, it's noticed. It makes me look weak." Bella's stomach dropped. "Then I should stop coming." "No." The word was sharp. He turned to face her. "I don't care what they think. For the first time in 3 years, I feel something. That's worth more than their opinions." The intensity in his voice made her heart race. "Ji-sun, come to dinner with me tonight. After the meeting. Let me take you somewhere nice." "That's not appropriate. You're my patient." "Then I'm firing you as my patient." He moved closer. "I'm 61 years old, Bella. I've spent my entire life doing what was expected, what was strategic. I lost my family because I made enemies. I've spent 31 years alone because I was afraid to lose anyone else. For once, I want to do something just because I want to. This is a terrible idea. The age difference alone. I know how old I am. I know how young you are. You think I haven't thought about this? His hand lifted, almost touching her face before dropping. You think I don't know how inappropriate this is? But I haven't felt alive in decades until you walked through that door. Bella's mind raced. Every professional instinct screamed at her to refuse, to maintain boundaries. But looking into his eyes, seeing the vulnerability there, she couldn't find the words. One dinner, she heard herself say, "Just to talk. As friends." As friends, he agreed, but something in his smile told her they both knew it was a lie. That evening, Bella stood in her apartment trying to decide what to wear. Marga had called 3 times, each time warning her that this was a mistake. Bella knew she was right. A 25-year-old therapist going to dinner with her 61-year-old patient, who also happened to be a crime boss who'd lost his family to violence. It was the plot of a tragedy waiting to happen. But she couldn't stop thinking about the way he'd looked at her. Like she was water, and he'd been dying of thirst. She settled on a simple black dress, professional but elegant. When the car arrived to pick her up, Tae-jin was driving. He gave her a long look in the rearview mirror, but said nothing. They drove to a restaurant in Gangnam, exclusive and quiet. Ji-sun was waiting at a private table, dressed in a dark suit that made him look distinguished and powerful. The silver in his hair caught the light. When he stood to greet her, she was reminded of how tall he was, how commanding his presence. "You look beautiful," he said simply. "Thank you." Bella sat across from him, hyper-aware of the intimacy of the setting. They ordered wine, food. The conversation started professionally, talking about his progress, about treatment options. But gradually, it shifted. He asked about her childhood in Kenya, her family, her dreams. She asked about his younger years, the choices that led him here. "Do you have regrets?" she asked over dessert. "Many," he said honestly. "But the biggest one is not protecting my family better. I was 30 years old, arrogant, thought I was invincible. I made enemies without thinking about the consequences. They paid the price for my ambition. That wasn't your fault. You didn't plant the bomb." "No, but I created the world where someone thought planting a bomb in my car was a solution." His voice was heavy. "My wife was 28. My daughter was 5, my son was 3. They never had a chance because of me." Bella felt tears prick her eyes. "I'm so sorry. It was 31 years ago. You'd think it would hurt less by now." He took a drink of wine. "But some wounds never really heal. You just learn to live with them. Is that why you've been alone all this time?" "I swore I'd never give anyone that kind of power over me again. Never create another target. For 31 years, I've kept that promise." He looked at her directly. "Until you." The air between them changed, charged with possibility. "Bella, I need you to understand what you'd be getting into." His voice dropped low. "I'm not just older. I'm dangerous. I've done things, ordered things that would horrify you. People want me dead. There are factions right now plotting how to take me out because they think I'm weak, that age has made me vulnerable. And if they know you matter to me, you become a target just like my family was. Are you trying to scare me away?" "I'm trying to be honest." He reached across the table, his hand covering hers. The touch sent electricity through her. "Because if we cross this line, if we become more than therapist and patient, you become my weakness. You become what they killed my family for." Bella looked at their joined hands. His was larger, marked with old scars, weathered by decades. Hers was smooth, young, untouched by real violence. They shouldn't fit together. But somehow they did. "I'm already involved," she said quietly. "The moment I walked into that room, I became involved." "Then let me protect you properly." He squeezed her hand. "Move into my penthouse. Let me keep you safe." "That's moving too fast. At my age, everything feels urgent." His smile was sad. "I don't have the luxury of taking things slow. I've already lost 31 years to fear and isolation." Bella pulled her hand back, needing space to think. "I need time. This is all so overwhelming." The age difference, your world, the danger, what happened to your family. I need to process. Take all the time you need. He signaled for the check. I'll wait. I've gotten good at waiting. They left the restaurant and Taejin drove her home. Ji-sun walked her to her door, a gentleman despite everything. Thank you for dinner, Bella said. Thank you for coming. He hesitated, then leaned down and pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. The gesture was tender, almost paternal, which made the heat that flooded through her feel even more forbidden. Good night, Bella. Good night. She watched him walk back to the car, this man who was old enough to be her father, who'd lived an entire life before she was even born, who'd loved and lost in the most devastating way possible. And she knew, without a doubt, that she was falling for him. That night, she couldn't sleep. Her phone buzzed around midnight. A text from an unknown number. The African girl needs to go home. Ji-sun Park is ours to handle. Leave Seoul or face consequences. Bella's hands shook as she stared at the message. This was real. The danger Ji-sun had warned her about wasn't theoretical. It was the same danger that had killed his family 31 years ago. She screenshot the message and sent it to him. His response came immediately. I'm sending Taejin. Pack a bag. You're not staying there tonight. Ji-sun, I can handle. Please, Bella. Just this once, let me protect you. I couldn't protect them. Let me protect you. The desperation in that message broke her heart. 20 minutes later, she was in the back of Taejin's SUV, heading across Seoul. They didn't go to the hospital. Instead, they pulled into an underground garage beneath a gleaming high-rise. Where are we? Mr. Park's private residence. You'll be safe here. Taejin led her to a private elevator. He's waiting upstairs. The elevator opened directly into a penthouse that took Bella's breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of Seoul. The decor was minimalist and expensive, all clean lines and dark colors. Everything about it screamed wealth and power accumulated over decades. Ji-sun stood at those windows, hands in his pockets, tension visible in every line of his body. He turned when the elevator opened. In casual clothes, he looked younger somehow, though the silver in his hair still marked him as older. Are you hurt? He asked immediately. No, just scared. Bella wrapped her arms around herself. He crossed the room and pulled her into his arms without asking permission. She went willingly, pressing her face against his chest. He smelled like expensive cologne and something uniquely him. His embrace was solid, protective, the embrace of someone who'd spent decades learning how to shield what mattered and failed once before. I'm sorry, he murmured into her hair. I should have known they'd come after you. History is repeating itself. Who are they? Rivals. Younger men who think I'm too old to lead, that my time is past. His arms tightened around her. They see you as proof I'm distracted, weak. A 61-year-old man involved with a 25-year-old therapist. It makes me look foolish. More importantly, it gives them leverage. You're not foolish. Aren't I? He pulled back to look at her. I'm old enough to be your father, Bella. This thing between us, it's inappropriate on every level. And I'm making the same mistake I made 31 years ago. I'm giving them a target. I don't care about appropriate. You should. His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. You have your whole life ahead of you. I'm closer to the end than the beginning. You deserve someone who can give you decades, not years. Someone who doesn't come with enemies who plant bombs. Stop deciding what I deserve. Bella looked up at him. I'm 25, not 15. I'm capable of making my own choices. Are you choosing this? Choosing me? Even knowing what happened to the last people I loved, she thought about all the reasons she should say no. The age gap, the danger, the impossibility of a real future, the ghost of his dead family. Then she thought about the way he looked at her, the gentle way he touched her, the vulnerability he showed only to her. Yes, she whispered. I'm choosing you. He kissed her then, and it was nothing like the gentle forehead kiss from earlier. This was claiming, desperate, the kiss of a man who'd been alone too long and was terrified of losing again. Bella responded without thinking, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Ji-sun rested his forehead against hers. Stay with me tonight. Just sleeping. I need to know you're safe. I can't lose someone else. Okay. He led her to a guest room, brought her clothes to sleep in. My room is down the hall if you need anything. But an hour later, Bella couldn't sleep. The threats, the kiss, the overwhelming realization of what she was getting into, the knowledge of what had happened to his family, all of it kept her mind racing. She found herself walking down the hall to his room. She knocked softly. Ji-sun. The door opened immediately. He'd been awake too, still dressed in the clothes from earlier. Can't sleep. Can I stay with you? I don't want to be alone. He stepped aside, let her in. His room was large, masculine, with the same floor-to-ceiling windows. They lay down together on top of the covers, Bella curling against his side, her head on his chest. Tell me about them, she said softly. Your family, if you want to. He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then his voice came, rough with old pain. Her name was Yuna. We met when we were both 22, got married a year later. She was fierce, like you. Refused to be intimidated by my world. His hand stroked Bella's back. Our daughter Minji looked just like her. And our son Daewon, he had my stubbornness. He was only 3 but already so determined. They sound beautiful. They were everything. His voice broke slightly. The bomb was in my car. I was supposed to be driving that day, but I'd taken a different vehicle to a meeting. Yuna needed to pick up Minji from school, so she took my car. Daewon was with her. They died instantly, the investigators said. They didn't suffer. Bella felt tears streaming down her face. Ji-sun. I hunted down everyone involved. It took me 2 years, but I found them all. Made them pay. His voice was cold now. But it didn't bring them back. Nothing brought them back. So I made a vow. Never again. Never another family, never another weakness. For 31 years, I've been untouchable because I had nothing left to lose. Until now. Until now, he agreed. And I'm terrified, Bella. Terrified that I'm making the same mistake. That loving you will get you killed just like it got them killed. She lifted her head to look at him. Then we'll be careful. We'll be smart. There's no being smart in my world. There's only being lucky. And my luck ran out 31 years ago. Maybe you're due for some good luck. He pulled her closer, held her like she might disappear. I hope you're right. Because I can't go through that again. I wouldn't survive it. They talked until Bella finally drifted off, feeling safer than she had any right to given the circumstances. Ji-sun watched her sleep, this young woman who'd somehow broken through walls he'd spent 3 decades building. At 61, he thought he was done with feeling anything real. He'd been wrong. And that terrified him more than any rival ever had. The next morning, Bella woke to find Ji-sun already up, on the phone in his office. She could hear his voice through the door, speaking rapid Korean. The tone was hard, commanding. This was the crime boss, not the vulnerable patient. She found coffee in the kitchen, made herself comfortable. When he emerged 20 minutes later, his expression was grim. I've called a meeting. Every faction, every family. This ends today. What are you going to do? Make it clear that you're under my protection. That touching you means war. He poured himself coffee. It's risky. It confirms what they suspect, that you matter to me. But it's necessary. I won't let what happened to Yuna and the kids happen to you. Ji-sun, maybe I should just go back to Kenya. If my being here is causing problems, if it's putting you in the same position. No. He set down his cup with force. I've spent 61 years letting others dictate my choices. I let fear control me for 31 years. Not this time. Not with you. But your organization. We'll learn to accept it or find new leadership. He moved closer. I know this is complicated. I know the age difference makes people uncomfortable. I know I should let you go, let you find someone appropriate, someone who doesn't have a family buried in the ground because of his choices. But Bella, I'm a selfish old man who's found something precious for the first time in 3 decades. I'm not letting go without a fight. The meeting was set for that evening. Ji-sun wanted Bella to stay at the penthouse, but she refused. If this is about me, I should be there. It's too dangerous. Then make it safe. But I'm not hiding while you fight my battles. She crossed her arms. We're partners in this. Equal partners. He looked like he wanted to argue, then his expression softened. You're braver than I gave you credit for. You remind me of her. Of Yuna. She wouldn't hide either. Then let me stand beside you. Fine, but you stay by my side the entire time. Deal. The meeting location was a private room in one of Ji-sun's hotels. When they arrived, the space was already filling with dangerous-looking men. Most were younger than Ji-sun, in their 30s and 40s. Their eyes tracked Bella with obvious curiosity and some with contempt. She heard whispers. That's her? She's a child. He's lost his mind. This is what happens when you get old. He's making the same mistake again. Ji-sun's hand found the small of her back, steady and possessive. The last to arrive was a man in his early 40s, handsome and sharp-eyed. This was Kwon Ha-jun, leader of the faction that wanted Ji-sun out. He smiled when he saw Bella. So this is the distraction. I see the rumors were true. Ji-sun's expression hardened. Careful, Ha-jun. I mean no disrespect to the young lady. I'm simply observing that our esteemed leader seems to have found new priorities. He looked around the room. History repeating itself. We all remember what happened last time Ji-sun had priorities beyond this organization. The room went silent. The reference to Ji-sun's dead family hung in the air like poison. This meeting wasn't called to discuss my personal life, Ji-sun said coldly. It was called to establish boundaries. Bella Nandi is under my protection. Anyone who threatens her, anyone who even looks at her wrong, answers to me personally. You would risk everything for a girl young enough to be your daughter? Ha-jun's voice dripped with mock concern. This is exactly what we've been worried about. Your judgment is compromised. Again. We all know how that ended the first time. My judgment is fine. What's compromised is your understanding of consequences. Ji-sun stood, and the room fell silent. I've led this organization for 35 years. 35 years of keeping territories secure, of profitable deals, of stability. Any of you think you can do better? Silence. That's what I thought. Ji-sun's voice was steel. So here's how this works. Bella is off limits. She's not a weakness, she's not leverage, she's not to be discussed, threatened, or even thought about. She's mine. Anyone with a problem can challenge me directly. And when you're gone? Ha-jun pressed. You're 61, Ji-sun. No heir, no succession plan. This girl doesn't change that. If anything, she makes you more vulnerable. Just like before. Then I suggest you all hope I live a long time. Ji-sun's smile was dangerous. Because if something happens to me, if I even suspect foul play, I've left instructions that will burn everything down. No one gets the empire. It all goes up in flames. Just like I should have done 31 years ago. The threat hung in the air. Mutters rippled through the room. This is madness, someone said. This is clarity, Ji-sun countered. For 31 years, I've built this with no attachments, no weaknesses, no one to lose. Now I have someone again. Deal with it or leave my organization. One by one, men nodded acceptance. It was political theater, Bella realized. They weren't agreeing because they liked her or approved. They were agreeing because going against Ji-sun was still too dangerous, age or not. Ha-jun was the last to speak. The Kwon faction respects your decision, but we maintain our concerns about succession and about history. Noted. This meeting is over. As people filed out, Bella felt the weight of dozens of gazes. She'd just become the most talked about person in Seoul's underground. The young African woman who'd somehow captured the heart of the most powerful crime boss in the city. The woman who might be making him repeat his greatest tragedy. Ji-sun led her out through a private exit. In the car, he finally relaxed slightly. That was intense, Bella said. That was necessary. He took her hand. They needed to know I'm serious. But Bella, you understand what this means? You're visible now. Everyone knows you matter to me. Just like Yuna was visible. Just like the kids were targets. I know. And you're still choosing this? Even knowing how it ended for them. She looked at him, this man who was 61 years old, who'd lived an entire life before she was born, who'd loved and lost in the most devastating way possible, who'd just declared war on his own organization for her. I'm still choosing this. He pulled her close, kissed her hair. Then I'll spend every day I have left making sure you don't regret it. And I'll protect you better than I protected them. I swear it. The words hung between them. Every day I have left. A reminder that even if they had decades, he had fewer decades ahead than behind. But looking into his eyes, Bella couldn't bring herself to care about the math. Sometimes love didn't make sense. Sometimes it crossed boundaries it shouldn't. Sometimes it came with ghosts and grief and impossible dangers. And sometimes you had to choose it anyway. Over the next week, Bella moved into the penthouse. Security tripled. Taejin gave her a crash course in situational awareness, escape routes, emergency protocols. The same protocols that had failed to save Ji-sun's family 31 years ago, now updated and reinforced. They fell into a routine that felt domestic and surreal at the same time. She continued her therapy sessions with him, though now they were mixed with stolen kisses and lingering touches. The line between professional and personal had blurred completely. Ji-sun told her more about his world. The deals, the violence, the constant chess game of power. Bella shared more about her dreams, her fears, her family back in Kenya who'd be horrified if they knew who she was involved with. What do they think you're doing here? Ji-sun asked one evening over dinner. Working with a high-profile client. They're proud I'm so successful so young. Bella played with her food. They don't know about us. They don't know about the threats or the danger or any of it. Would they approve? No. My father would have a heart attack. My mother would probably fly here to drag me home. She smiled sadly. They'd say you're too old, too dangerous, too everything. They'd say I'm being stupid, that I'm going to end up like. She stopped herself, but it was too late. Like Yuna, Ji-sun finished quietly. They'd be right to worry. I don't care if they're right. She reached across the table. I care about how I feel. And I feel more alive with you than I ever have. Even knowing I can't give you everything, can't give you the decades a younger man could, can't promise you won't end up in a grave because of me. Quality over quantity. She squeezed his hand. I'd rather have 10 amazing years with you than 50 mediocre years with someone safe. You say that now. I'll say it tomorrow too. And the day after. He stood, moved around the table, pulled her into his arms. I don't deserve you. Good thing I don't care what you deserve. They kissed, and it led to more. Led to them tangled together in his bed, learning each other's bodies. The age difference was obvious in the ways their bodies moved, in the patience of his touch versus the urgency of hers. But it didn't matter. Nothing mattered except this connection, this unexpected love that felt like both a second chance and a terrible risk. Afterwards, lying in the darkness, Ji-sun traced patterns on her shoulder. I need to tell you something, he said quietly. Okay. There's a doctor in New York. She specializes in nerve regeneration. I've scheduled a consultation next month. That's wonderful. I want you to come with me. Not as my therapist, but as my partner. Bella's heart swelled. I'd love to. There's something else. If the surgery works, if function is restored, I want to think about the future differently. He paused. I know I said I was too old for children, too old for that kind of future after what happened. But with you, I find myself reconsidering. Ji-sun, you're 61. And you've already lost. I'm 61, not dead. Men father children well into their 60s, 70s even. He turned to look at her. I'm not saying tomorrow or even next year. But maybe, if this thing between us lasts, if we survive what they didn't, we could think about it. Bella felt tears prick her eyes. You'd want that? Even with all the complications? Even after everything? I'd want everything with you. Whatever time I have left, I want to spend it building something real. Something I should have protected better the first time. They fell asleep wrapped around each other, and Bella felt complete. Yes, there were risks. Yes, the age gap was substantial. Yes, his world was dangerous and their future uncertain, and his past was filled with tragedy. But love didn't ask permission. It didn't care about appropriate ages or safe choices or dead families. It just was. And this, complicated and forbidden and beautiful and terrifying, this was love. The weeks that followed were a blend of bliss and tension. Bella continued her work at the clinic, though now with heavy security always nearby. She'd become something of a legend in Seoul's medical community. The prodigy who'd finished medical school at 22, now working with one of the city's most powerful men. People whispered, of course, about the age gap, about the nature of their relationship, about whether she was using him or he was using her, about whether she'd end up like his first family. Bella learned to ignore it. Let them talk. She knew the truth. Ji-sun was different now, lighter somehow. The progress in his treatment had been remarkable. With restored sensation came restored confidence. He smiled more, laughed easier. The darkness that had surrounded him when they first met had lifted, though the shadow of his past loss never fully disappeared. "You did this," he told her one evening. "You gave me back my life. We did it together." 2 weeks later, Bella was at her clinic when the receptionist knocked urgently. "Miss Nandi, there's someone here to see you. He says he's a friend from America." Bella finished her session and went to the waiting room. Her heart stopped. Jaden Webb sat there, looking exactly the same as always. Easy smile and casual confidence. They'd gone through grad school together, stayed friends even as their lives took them to different continents. "Jaden." She hurried over. "What are you doing here?" He stood, pulling her into a hug. "I was at a conference in Tokyo, decided to stop by Seoul to surprise you. Hope that's okay." "Of course, it's great to see you." Bella stepped back, suddenly aware of the security guard watching them intently. "How long are you here for?" "Just a few days. I figured we could catch up over coffee or something." His smile was warm and familiar. "You've been so mysterious about this Seoul gig. I want to hear everything." They made plans to meet that afternoon at a cafe in Itaewon. Bella texted Ji-sun to let him know, keeping it casual. Just mentioning an old friend was in town. His response came immediately. "Be careful. Take security with you." At the cafe, Jaden ordered them both Americanos, and they settled at a corner table. It felt surreal, this piece of her normal life intersecting with her new complicated reality. "So tell me about this mysterious client," Jaden said. "Must be pretty important for them to fly you all the way to Korea." Bella gave him the basics, leaving out names and identifying details. A high-profile patient with complex nerve damage. Significant progress. Complicated circumstances. Complicated how? Jaden leaned forward. "Just, the client is very private. There's a lot of security involved." "Security?" His brow furrowed. "Bella, that sounds sketchy. Are you sure you're safe here?" "I'm fine. It's just how things work with certain high-profile people." They talked for another hour and Bella felt some of the tension ease. This was familiar, comfortable. Jaden represented her old life, her normal life, before crime bosses and age gaps and death threats. She was laughing at something Jaden said when she felt it. That prickling awareness. She looked up and her heart stopped. Ji-sun stood 10 feet away, dressed in an impeccable black suit. His hair was styled back from his face, and he looked every inch the powerful, dangerous man people whispered about. But his eyes were fixed on her with an intensity that made her skin heat. And those eyes were cold with barely restrained jealousy. "Ji-sun," she stood automatically. "I didn't expect to see you here. I own the hotel." His gaze cut to Jaden, cold and assessing. "I see you're having a nice time." "Jaden Webb, we went to grad school together." She gestured between them, trying to ignore the sudden tension. "Jaden, this is Ji-sun Park." Jaden extended his hand with friendly ignorance. "Nice to meet you, sir. Bella's told me she's working with someone important here. It's great that she's getting such high-profile opportunities." Ji-sun shook his hand, but Bella saw the deliberate pressure in his grip, the subtle flex of dominance. The age difference between the two men was obvious. Jaden was maybe 30, fresh-faced and easy. Ji-sun was 61, silver-haired and radiating authority and danger. "Has she?" Ji-sun's brows quirked. "It wasn't a question. I wasn't aware my treatment was conversation material." "Oh no, she never discusses client details," Jaden said quickly. "Just that she's working with someone who values privacy. Professional as always." "She is very professional." Ji-sun's jaw was tight. His eyes hadn't left Bella. "How long are you in Seoul, Mr. Webb?" "Just a few days. Bella and I have been trying to sync schedules for months. Finally got her to sit still long enough to catch up." "How fortunate." Ji-sun's smile didn't reach his eyes. Enjoy your evening. He turned and walked away before Bella could say anything else. She watched him cross the lobby, every bit the powerful crime boss, and felt something twist in her chest. That was jealousy she'd seen in his eyes. Raw and barely controlled. Wow, Jaden said after Ji-sun was gone. That guy was intense. Is he always like that? He's complicated, Bella managed. And old enough to be your father. How old is he, like 50-something? 61. Jaden's eyes widened. And he's your client? Bella, please tell me there's nothing inappropriate happening there. There's not, she lied, the words tasting bitter. He's just very serious about his privacy. But she could barely focus on the rest of their conversation. Her mind was on Ji-sun, on the look in his eyes, on how she would explain this. They finished their coffee and parted ways with promises to meet again before Jaden left Seoul. Bella went straight back to the penthouse, her heart racing. Ji-sun was there, standing at the windows with a glass of whiskey in his hand. He didn't turn when she entered. Ji-sun, can we talk about what happened? Who is he really? His voice was controlled, too controlled. I told you. Jaden and I went to grad school together. We've been friends for years. He was at a conference in Tokyo and decided to stop by. And that's all. Yes, that's all. He finally turned to face her. The vulnerability in his eyes broke her heart. I saw how he looked at you. How comfortable you were with him. He's young, appropriate, probably has his whole life planned out. Everything I'm not. Ji-sun. I'm 61 years old, Bella. 36 years older than you. Old enough that seeing you with someone your own age reminds me how ridiculous this is. How temporary this has to be. Stop. Bella crossed the room to him. You're the one I chose. Not Jaden, not anyone else. You. Today. But what about in 5 years? 10? When I'm 70 and you're still young. When you watch your friends with husbands their own age while you're taking care of an old man. You're not old. I'm old enough to have buried a wife and children. Old enough to know that loving me is dangerous. Old enough to know that you deserve better. Bella took the glass from his hand and set it aside. Then she cupped his face, forcing him to look at her. I don't want better. I want you. The jealous, possessive, complicated you. The you who lost everything and is brave enough to try again. That's who I want. Even knowing what happened to them? Even knowing. I'm not naive, Ji-sun. I know the risks. But I also know that I love you. Something in his expression cracked. He pulled her against him, holding her tight. I love you too. God help me, I love you so much it terrifies me. I can't lose you like I lost them. You won't. You can't promise that. No one can. Then we'll be as careful as we can be. We'll take every precaution. But we won't let fear win. He kissed her then, desperate and claiming, and Bella knew this was about more than jealousy. This was about a man who'd lost everything once and was terrified of history repeating. That night, wrapped in each other's arms, Ji-sun told her more about Yuna. About how they'd met, how she'd challenged him just like Bella did. How he thought they'd grow old together. How wrong he'd been. I never thought I'd feel this way again, he admitted. I didn't think I was capable of it. I built such high walls. I'm glad I could climb them. So am I. Even though it scares me more than anything ever has. 3 days later, Jaden left Seoul. Bella met him at the airport to say goodbye, with Taejin maintaining a discreet distance. Promise me you're being careful, Jaden said as they hugged. Something about this whole situation feels off. I promise. I'm fine. And that guy, your client. He's not, getting inappropriate or anything. Bella thought about Ji-sun, about the nights in his bed, about the way he touched her like she was precious. About the meetings with crime families and the threats and the dead family in the ground. Everything's professional, she lied. Jaden didn't look convinced, but he let it go. Call me if you need anything. I mean it, Bella. Anything. After he left, Bella felt the weight of the lie settle on her shoulders. She was lying to everyone. Her parents, her friends, even herself sometimes. Pretending this thing with Ji-sun was sustainable, that the age gap and the danger and the ghosts didn't matter. But when she got back to the penthouse and Ji-sun pulled her into his arms, when he whispered that he loved her, when he held her like she was the most important thing in his world, all the lies felt worth it. They flew to New York for the consultation a month later. Dr. Sarah Chin was impressed with Ji-sun's progress, confirmed that surgery could restore full function with high probability of success. "You've come remarkably far," she told Ji-sun. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." In New York, away from Seoul and its complications, they were just a couple. People still stared at the age difference, but it felt different. Less judgmental, more curious. They played tourist, held hands in Central Park, had dinner at romantic restaurants. On their last night, at a rooftop bar overlooking Manhattan, Ji-sun took both her hands. "I know this isn't conventional. I know people judge us. I know I'm old enough to be your father and that I come with a dead family and enemies who plant bombs. But Bella, these past few months have been the best of my life since I lost them. Maybe even including before." His eyes were serious. "I'm not asking for forever, because I know that's complicated. But I'm asking for now, for whatever time we have. Will you build a life with me? Will you help me believe that maybe I can have this again without losing everything?" "Yes." She didn't hesitate. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." He kissed her as the city lights sparkled around them, this man who was 36 years her senior, but felt like home. They returned to Seoul ready to face whatever came next. The threats, the judgment, the impossibility of it all, the shadow of his past tragedy. Because what they had was worth fighting for. 3 months after Bella first arrived in Seoul, she stood in Ji-sun's penthouse, looking out at the city. 6 months since she'd walked into that hospital room and challenged a broken man to heal. Now that man was whole. Surgery scheduled, organization stabilized, future uncertain but hopeful. Ji-sun came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about? How different everything is from 6 months ago. Better different? Much better." She leaned back against him. "Even with all the complications." Speaking of complications, his hand moved to rest on her stomach. "We should probably talk about the future. About what we want it to look like." "I'm not worried." Bella turned in his arms. "Whatever happens, we'll figure it out. Even if people think I'm a foolish old man? Even then." She kissed him softly. "I love you, Ji-sun. All 61 years, dangerous crime boss, tragic past and all. I love you. I love you too. My brilliant, brave, beautiful Bella who saw past everything to the man underneath. Who made me believe I could have this again without destroying everything." They stood there in the fading light, holding each other. A 25-year-old prodigy and a 61-year-old crime boss with a dead family in the ground. An impossible match on paper. Perfect in reality. Outside, Seoul glittered with possibility and danger in equal measure. Inside, they had each other. And for now, for however long they had, that was enough. That was everything. The end. I hope you enjoyed it. Please keep sharing love as you like and subscribe on my channel. Bye.